Hello, everybody. It's Pete Caliendo. This is Baseball Outside the Box, tip of the day. Thanks for joining us. Here's another tip. Want to talk about something which, it's always all over social media, and it's on MLB Network, and there's different experts in all areas, and you hear some really great stuff, and here's some stuff that may not be as true. One of the things we have to be very careful when teaching is that what we actually see may not be exactly what is actually happening. And that's where science comes in. It's really helped us a great deal understanding. Now, science has been around a little bit. You know, we all think that technology and science is really developing right now. Yes, it's growing faster now. We've got more technology. We've got a lot more technology, actually. But we did have technology 15, 20 years ago. The ABCA, we had human kinetics, I believe it was Biokinetics, who did a study on the actual baseball swing and utilized a lot of major league players into a computer, 1,000 frames per second. They also did a study later on, about 10 years later, presented that study. We have both of those studies, talking about with the foot plant, when the foot lands in hitting, talking about the position of the hands at contact, where they make contact, where the bat is, the bat angle, and so forth. Those are all great things to know. Now, when I started Mickey Owen Baseball School, when I was 15, that's a long time ago, been in the game 37 years. I remember starting off as an instructor at 17, at 20, 22, working with young kids. In those days we were working with a lot of young kids, 12 and under. We were using what they call verbal cues. A lot of times, if you remember, a lot of young kids, 12 and under, a lot of times have heavy bats. Even an aluminum bat nowadays that, is only a three differential when it comes to weight and length, or the weight might be a little bit less. Even those can be heavy for certain young kids. It depends on their strength, depends on their body size, it depends on a lot of things physically. So they can be weak, and there's a lot of things, a factor that makes them weak also within the swing, or also when the front foot is not on time. Those things all happen, and the odds are that a lot of young kids, and we know this just from trial and error, we know it through video and a lot of science. A lot of young kids do swing under the ball when they miss, majority of the time. Very few that swing actually over the ball. They swing under the ball when they miss. So we have to be careful when we talk about launch angles. We know that angles of the swing are somewhere between 5 and 15 degrees that allow the bat to get behind the ball and hit a line drive, because that's the angle that the ball is coming on, and we have to match that angle, and we also have to stay through that plane that the bat is coming through as long as possible. The longer you can stay through it, the better chances of hitting the ball, the better chance of hitting an off-speed pitch, becoming a much better hitter. Those are techniques that you work on. But we do have physical cues with young kids that are swinging under a lot, and popping the ball up or even missing it a lot. A lot of times, if you have the technology to place the different devices on the bat and show them the angle, that's great. But a lot of times you might have to use verbal cues. You might have to tell them, you know what, there's been times we've said, hit the ball on the ground. And what you're doing is compensating for that. You're not hitting down on it. You think you are, but you're actually getting on the right angle. And also now you'll start to see line drives. So don't be afraid to use verbal cues, whether it's swinging down, whether it's giving them targets to hit at. Just be careful when you listen to people on television, well-intended, they're obviously talking about major league hitters who are very strong. You're talking about, when you talk about bat angles, if you're not hitting the ball 95 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour with a certain bat angle to hit the ball out of the park, those are fly balls for a lot of young kids because they don't possess the bat speed that a lot of older players have. So, typically, if you don't have the technology, put the ball on a tee. I know tees are not always the best to use all the time, but, put the ball on a tee, hit a line drive. If you hit a line drive, your angle's pretty good. You're doing batting practice. Work on line drives. Take targets, put them out in the field. If you continue to work on batting practice that might be a little fast, more game speed, or reduce the distance to make a game speed, then you'll know if those are line drives, because you're reacting just like in a ball game. And if if you hit the ball up in the air, well, that tells you that your angle of the bat is incorrect. Change it a little bit. Start to change it, maybe down a little bit, and that way it'll get to the angle you're trying to get. You got to experiment as a player. Get out and hit. basically, if you're hitting line drives, during that practice, you're doing pretty good. So that's a small tip of the day. There's a lot to hitting, obviously, but this is something that I thought was important to address. I want to thank you for joining us on the show. Wish you a great day. Remember, this is Baseball Outside Box Tip of the Day by your host, Pete Caliendo. Check out our podcast, baseballoutsidethebox.com. Don't be afraid to check it out. We've got some of the best minds in the game of baseball who love the